Hello and good evening. Welcome to another edition of Pinoyathletics Track Talk on Sunday, the 14th of February, which happens to be Valentine's Day. So to all our listeners, happy Valentine's Day. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about the upcoming virtual event. Currently ongoing right now is the Hoka One 2021 Davao International Marathon, organized by Hoka One and BBGH Philippines. That event attracted 1,300 entries, and today, roughly, it looks like around 20 of those entries actually completed a marathon in a varying assortment of times. More on that at a later date. So just going to bring up the slides now to discuss the events. So we're actually going to start off by talking about the recent performance of Ernest John Obiena, who set a new personal best, national record, national indoor record, Southeast Asian record, and a PB, improving on his 5.81 meter leap set 2 years ago, with a 5.86 meter leap in the men's pole vault. He placed second at the All-In Cup in Poland, on count back behind reigning world champion Sam Kendricks of the USA, who also registered a height of 586. Full article is up on the Pinoyathletics website. I'm just going to show you a video after I've read from this article. So, in what we can describe as a defining moment in both Philippine sports and turning point in his athletic career, 25-year-old Ernest John Obiena cleared 586 at the All-In Cup in Lodz, Poland on February the 12th, 2021. The mark was a new Philippine indoor and outdoor record, new Southeast Asian record, personal best, and improved on his Olympic qualification time of 581 meters. He finished second behind Sam Kendricks, the 2017 and 2019 world champion in the pole vault and the Olympic bronze medalist in Rio in 2016. EJ is now only 5 centimeters away from the Asian record of 592, set by Igor Potovic of Kazakhstan in 1992 in Dijon, France. Okay, now I'm just going to quickly share the video. yeah, so that basically concludes that segment. Just a shout out to the watchers, Skylar Evador and Martin Esteban. Just share the screen quickly. So what's now been rebranded as the Philippine National 3000 Championships Virtual, held from February the 19th to the 21st, organised by the Iloilo running community. Now has 48 entries in total, 28 men and 20 women. And with entries still running for another 2 days, there's still plenty of time to add in more entries. The entries close strictly at 8 p.m. Philippine time at the 16th of February. No late entries will be accepted. 19th to 21st is the time to submit videos with the deadline at 8 a.m. So the two methods of submitting videos is either a track over or the video submitted afterwards. And also, or if it's done on a non-oval on a road, it needs to have Facebook Live. It needs to be Facebook Live. Both methods should use Strava, as we need to compare Strava times to Strava times, not Strava times to video times. I'll be sharing the start lists in a moment. So for the You Just Run event, now rebranded as the Philippine National 3000 Championships Virtual, the event will cost 150 Philippine pesos per athlete to enter. There are two payment options, payable by GCash to Sonia Perio by February the 16th, or via Palawan Pawn Shop to Jason Perio to the cell number below. Now I'm just going to share with you the entry list. I'm just going to do a brief rundown of who's entered and you know, a quick form guide. I'll be doing a more detailed form guide to discuss, you know, the achievements or the pedigree of the athletes that are entered in this event. We do have a few. We do have quite a lot of upcoming athletes in the event. Not a lot of national athletes entered at the moment, but nonetheless, a lot of exciting, promising upcoming new athletes who are obviously aiming for SEA Games slots. So I'll quickly share the screen. Here we go. All right, so this is a list of who's entered in the men's. Now I'm not sure if you can see. Here we go. That's a much bigger view of it. I will zoom in a bit to make it a bit more visible, if you like, because that's not really a very good screen view. There we go. Okay, so entered in the list for the men. We're just going through the list in alphabetical order. We've labelled it off. So Roger Naguaya, Aljun Aldia representing Iloilo. There's a lot of entries from Iloilo with the athletic community organising this event. Jose Jezreel of Cebu, Kenneth Billiones of Columba. So there's a variety of athletes competing from all a range of different locations within the Philippines. Two big names here in the entries are Frenzy Braza, the Palarong Pambansa champion in the 1500 and the 5000 meters in 2019 in the secondary boys. Also, the winner of the 10 kilometers at the BBGH run last month, and also the winner of the 5 kilometers at the Pinoyathletics Talking Chinoy virtual event, and also the runner-up recently in the Fantasia Pinoyathletics 1000 meters. Edgar Carraro, MVP in the high school division in the UAAP from Adamson University. Him and Braza will be racing each other on the 20th of February at the Iloilo Sports Complex, and that will be live streamed on the Pinoy page. So that's quite an exciting run to look forward to in the weekend. That will be in the morning on the 20th of February, on the Saturday. Also in the entries, so Riddell Cathedral, Jiren Dordas, Benji Duhak, Onyemurki Espinoza of Tangub City, Junsel Flores of Iloilo, and just scrolling down a little bit here. Okay, Ralph Gignagil of Tasmarinas, Joma Habolan of Iloilo, Joseph Hompe of Iloilo, Edgar Lee of San Juan City, Glenn Magno of Cameroon Sor, Ramel Margate of Davao del Norte, Antigua Nepomuceno of Davao del Norte, Elbrin Neri of Tangub City, the UAAP record holder in the 800 and 1500 and the 2016 National 800 meter champion in the PNG and the National Open. Christian Onate of Bataan, Roberto Panganiban of Bataan, Tilo Papel of Tangub City, J-Boy Romarabi of Davao del Norte, George Raquenyo of Cabuyao City Laguna, Rommel Sunaba of Iloilo, and the list continues. Christopher Tebogo of Davao del Norte, Christian Vizcaya of Iloilo, Brian Zuniga of Columbus City. So we have a total now of 28 entries in the men, and as we know with the Philippines and virtual meets, as everybody usually gets their entries in right on the last day. We observed in the Pinoy Athletics Talking Chinoy meet that we got more entries on the last 2 days than we did in the whole period leading up. So it's very possible that we'll get a lot more entries, flooding in faster than we can handle in the last couple of days. So now we're looking at the women's entries, which we have 20 women from around the country competing in this event. So we have the Abala sisters from Pasig, Reva and Rishan, Lani Kadona Adawag from Lingayan, Pangasinan. So Lani was the winner of the Pinoy Athletics Talking Chinoy 5,000 meter virtual run. She's been around the running scene for quite some time, and quite often wins a lot of local races, and has also ran in Thailand and Vietnam. Cherry Andren, one of the rising stars of Cebu from Lapu-Lapu City, was in quite a good 5,000 meter runner with a personal best below 19 minutes, 18 minutes something in the 5,000 meters. Wasn't able to finish in the Pinoy Athletics Talking Chinoy meet as he was detued for running on a course with negative elevation, which would not be within the rules of this competition because there is no guidelines against negative elevation in this in the rules of the national meet. Shout out to Jenny Era and Lemor Eugenio. Okay, now continuing the list, the women's field seems to be more tightly contested than the men's. In the men's, I picked out maybe 3 names to watch for. In the women's, there's quite a lot here. So also rounding up the lineup is Nian Barsena, a 4-time Milo 21K national champion, former UAAP record holder in the 8 and the 1.5 middle distance events, former member of the national team, finished runner-up in the Pinoyathletics Talking Chinoy 5,000 metres behind Lania Dowg, after running a 1 second faster time, which was DQ'd because of negative elevation of 19 minutes 12. Also in the lineup, Mylene Campomar of Don Carlos Bukidnon. The teenager Leslie De Lima for Camarine Saw, the Palarong Pambansa 1,500 and 3,000 metre champion. Pia Estenor from Calapan City. Paui Fonaya from Cavite, who is a duathlete, a member of the national team in duathlon, and a bronze medalist in the SEA Games in the mixed relays duathlon, which was held in the Philippines. Cherry Gonzalez of Fort Bonifacio, Angeline Lagrimas of Camarine Saw, Reina Malazab of Fort Bonifacio, Emberlyn Mendoza of Fort Bonifacio, and scrolling down the list further, Annalyn Monoy of Aklan, PB of 11 minutes 26, so also a contender for a podium finish in this event. Relinjoy Pasha of Iloilo, Ruby Payao of Iloilo, Maria Laika Sarmiento of Aklan, a constant medalist in the UAAP in the steeplechase 5,000, 1,500 metre events, usually always in the top 3 at the UAAP, so one of the top contenders in this event. Samantha Victor of Cagayan de Oro, Danita Takuyan of Angeles City, and Razabel Fabalon of Angeles City, more of a high jumper / 400 metre runner, top 3 in the UAAP in the high jump, and also I believe took a gold or a silver at the national championships in the high jump. So quite a range of athletes competing here. And shout out also to Coach Tim Magara from Southern Cebu. All right, so that should be an exciting event with 48 athletes entered, with more to come. Battling it out for the title of 3,000 metre national champion, to be recognised in all future Pinoyathletics write-ups with the distinguished title of 3,000 metre national champion for 2021. Now, that pretty much ends that segment. We'll take questions on it if need be. And last but not least, this is going to be a very quick show by the looks of things. It's going to be less than half an hour. Oh, I don't want that one. Yeah, here we go. So just a reminder regarding Pinoyathletics' upcoming events, Sprintopia, which will be scheduled from the 13th to the 14th, with 100 and 200 and 400 metre events for men's and women's, boys and girls. Please email name, event choices, year of birth, best time and venue, oval being used to pinoyathletics@gmail.com. Free entry. No entries should come in later than March the 10th because late entries won't be accepted for that. There's quite a lot of entries at the moment which are available up on the website. I won't read them all out. We'll probably save that one for another show because there's more than a month still to go to take entries. But I can say I'm not going to read out every name from it, but I'll give you a rough indication of how many entries we're looking at. So there are 26 entries in the men's 100, 27 entries in the men's 200, 17 entries in the men's 400, 15 entries in the women's 100, 12 entries in the women's 200, 9 entries in the women's 400, two women's 4x1 teams, and one men's 4x1 relay team entered in this event as of today. Okay, so that was a pretty quick show. So just thank you to everybody for tuning in tonight, and I guess that's it. Thank you and good night. 2021 3,000 meter virtual event. I'll just add. Good evening, Brian.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. So I'm just starting up with some updates that I got. So I think that PATAFA had a press conference early today, and they announced that their National Open and National Training Camp won't happen until the third quarter of 2021, which is around, I estimated it would be June or July, but my source said that it won't be until about September, which is cutting it really close to the Southeast Asian Games, because the Southeast Asian Games is in November and December, and I think, isn't the qualification or the cutoff supposed to be October for the Taskforce? So it's really cutting everything really, really close to the deadline. So basically, that means that all that's pretty much happening until that time is virtual meets. So I just mainly start with the virtual event for the 3,000 meters. This event was organized by the Iloilo running community, which is a group of runners in Iloilo, and Pinoyathletics isn't the organizer of the event, but we sort of gave them a bit of help in, with the administrative side of the entries and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, the guy from Iloilo Athletics, Jason Aperio, he's got a really bad internet connection there, so he's not able to really, connect. So I just I've got a link here, which I'll just post, and this is the entry list for the meet. So the 3,000 meters has a total of 45 men and 29 women entered in the event. And among the entry, so I've just posted a link to the start list on the side for anyone who's interested in viewing the start list. So among the entries and the men, we're now allowed to announce that the Southeast Asian Games bronze medalist in the 5,000 meters, Sonny Wagdos, will be joining the event. He's, of course, a member of Philippine Air Force. It's one of the stronger entries in the event. Also in the men, we will be having our friend Braza, who is the Palarong Pambansa champion in the 1,500 and the 3,000 from 2019. And he also won the 5K Pinoy Athletics Talking Chinoy virtual event and the 10,000 meters at the BBG Run PH virtual event, which was organized by Coach Roalano, who's currently has the Davao International Marathon in progress at the moment. So hopefully we should have some updates on the athletes at the Davao International Marathon, which is ongoing as well at the moment. This virtual event, 3,000 meters, it will take place from February 19 up until the close is February 21 at 8 a.m. in the morning. So all the videos have to be submitted by that point. And of course, the entries mainly preferred are on track ovals, because a lot of track ovals are now opening up. In fact, two of the main contenders, Alfrense Braza, the Palarong Pambansa champion and virtual run champion for the last few events, and Edgar Carrado, who's the national junior champion in the 800 meters in 2019, and also the MVP in the UAAP in the juniors from Adamson University, but from Iloilo. They're actually racing against each other on Saturday morning at the Iloilo Sports Complex. with some other runners. So as track ovals start opening up, it becomes more possible to have minimalized time trial type events. Of course, you can't have large groups because of the COVID, but you can just sort of integrate it into training sessions. Also in the starting list of the men is Ed Carlos Sibiliano, who's the NCAA champion in the 800 and the 1500 meter run. Jerry Vasquez, the Polaroid champion in the steeplechase. Just browsing through. Oh, Elbrin Neri, the UAAP record holder in the 8 and the 1500 meters. I'm not too sure who most of the others are in the list. There's a lot of guys entered from Ilo Athletics. In fact, probably out of the 45 entries, about maybe 15 of them are from Ilo, and the rest are from the other parts of the Philippines, from all regions, like are pretty much represented here. There's athletes from Mindanao, there's athletes from different parts of the Visayas, there's athletes from Luzon, so all the Philippines is pretty well represented at this event. And in the women, there's 29 entries. So the women is a bit more of an open event in terms of, like, there's a lot of quite accomplished athletes in the women's event, but I wouldn't say there's anyone who's like sort of like an A grade athlete. Like we don't have the star power of, say, a Tabal or a Halasgo, or even Joy Gagnow in this event. But in the event, there were quite a few women in this event who ran under 11 minutes, like Polaroid champion Leslie De Lima, who's run 10:22. She's the back-to-back Polaroid champion in the 1.5 and the 3,000. We also have, going through the list, the Prisa champion Edna Magtubo, and the runner-up in the Western Visayas meet, Annalyn Monoy, and also Maria Laika Sarmiento, a UAAP medalist, perennially in the 8.15 steeplechase 5 and 10K, and also the Sasapi champion Cherry Andrin, and Lani Cardona Adawak, the winner of the 5,000 meters at our last event. So there's no major, like A-grade type of athlete. And like in the men, Sonny Wagdos is pretty good, Braz is pretty good, and then Corrado is pretty good. These guys are like, Braz is really in shape. Corrado was impressive in his dry trial run for this. He did a dry trial run for 3K the other day, and he was pretty impressive. And Wagdos is more, he's a good 1,500 runner, a good 5,000 meter runner from, came from the University of Mindanao originally. He's sort of like supporting this event. I would say he's probably not in his best shape, but he's sort of getting back. He's sort of getting back into his training. So this event is kind of like part of his build up for getting ready for the trials for the SEA Games. So it's good to see at least one national athlete come out and sort of like join the virtual events to sort of like obviously it's not going to be the most ideal situation is actually racing against people, but at least he's sort of giving himself a chance to get back into shape by actually participating in some sort of event rather than sort of just not really doing any not really not doing anything, but like not really having any kind of competition at all in comparison. So initially So those are pretty much our entries. So I'll be inviting now Happy Denuyo into the room. So she's a PSC strength and conditioning coach for the second part of this to give her insights into the race and also the current situation with athletics at this point. So Happy, hello. I don't mean to catch you off guard there. You seem to be checking your messages or something.
Hi guys, hi everyone.
Hi,
Hi coach.
Happy.
Hi. Good evening, Happy. Hello.
Sorry, come again.
So Happy, I was just discussing something, and this is probably more than the long distance stuff, something more that we can discuss. I was informed earlier tonight by a source that the Philippine National Open will not happen until the third quarter of the year. So that's going to be around, I thought it was June or July, but according to my source, they said not at least until September. So we're looking at cutting it really close to the Southeast Asian Games, which are going to be, just 2 months later in September. So my thoughts were that, like if you're an athlete aiming for the SEA Games, or if you're a national athlete trying to get back and defend your space in the SEA Games, really now is the time to sort of, do something about your training, because I mean, if the nationals is in September, the training camp is in September. That's only 2 months before the SEA Games, or 3 months if they started in August.
Hello. So, what
So
is your question, Joe?
yeah, I was just saying that the news was that the national open will not be until about August or September, until about September. So the training camp won't start until the third quarter of the year.
Okay. So you're asking for my thoughts. Is that it, or like my opinion?
Well, this is your views, as a PSC strength and conditioning
What are my
coach, and
views?
as an
Okay.
upcoming coach in athletics, and my views are like, what should athletes be doing now in February? Because it's going to be, it's like nationals is not till September or October, but that's only a month. That's only like a month or so, or a couple of months before the SEA Games will start. So it's February now. Like in terms of periodization, where should athletes be right now in terms of getting ready for the trial of the SEA Games?
Oh, okay, okay. I get your point. Actually, having a competition on September has like good and bad side. Like for example, if that's the first competition, like for roughly 2 years, if if what happened to athletes is if they stop for like 2 years, then having a competition on September would be like um it's somehow not ideal. Okay. However, if like if you've been like training for that long enough, September could be like a start of you, or September could be your pre-competition going to the competition phase on December. So again, it really depends. On my opinion, it really depends on how the coach is planned it, planned their entire season. Like, cause like within what there has been no competition for 2 years. So so
Yeah.
so basically, there's no competition for 2 years. So having only one like quote unquote main competition too is not ideal, or it's too. I'm looking for the term, pero tawag ito, it's not ideal. Okay. sorry, I'm out of words right now. So if you get the point naman at the end.
So the thing is here, usually the National Open is held in the middle or earlier in the year, which allows, I'm guessing, a two-peak sort of periodization plan. So you've got like peak for the SEA Games, peak for the competition, which is 6 months apart. Is it possible to have a mini peak in the for the National Open? So you'll be at, I guess you'd have to be at about 90 to 95% at the National Open and then be at 100% at the SEA Games, which is 2 months later. Is it possible to have a mini peak to use the National Open to bounce onto the SEA Games?
Yes. If if your main if your main competition would be the Southeast Asian Games, then sorry, then the National Open could be one of your evaluation, okay, or like the start. Your as what I've mentioned earlier, your pre-competition. So it's like on the deloading. It's aside from evaluation, it could be like your time trial as of what you are, what your condition is as of the moment. So again, it's how, like, yes, it could be your mini, quote unquote, your mini peak. And however, if you're an athlete whose your main competition is the the National Open, then then your mindset should be like that's your main goal. But then again, if your main competition is Southeast Asian Games, then you can use the National Open as your, again, your evaluation or your pre-competition, like the the start of your pre-competition phase or your evaluations, like that.
It was interesting because I spoke with, I think both, or I messaged, I didn't really speak with them, I was chatting with them on Facebook, with firstly with Congressman Romero, and then I was also having a chat with Mon Fernandez, who's the chef de mission for the SEA Games. And they're basically talking now about putting a team together for the SEA Games. So I was basically saying that how do you put this team together for the SEA Games this early if you don't even really know who's qualified yet? So they said to me, well, I was told that anybody who got a medal in the last SEA Games, which was 2 years ago, or no, maybe not 2 years ago, just over 1 year ago, would be automatic for the SEA Games. So that means that if you were a medalist in the last SEA Games, you're automatic. But if you're not a medalist, I was advised that you needed to hit the bronze medal standard of the 2019 SEA Games bronze medal place to be added to the team. So with that in mind, it's as if the task force was basically saying that they will just support the medalists because they're definitely in for the SEA Games, and anybody else just has to hit the standard to be included later on.
Okay. Um, for me, I'm not sure if I comprehend your your question clearly, but um, are you saying that the medalist is like the those who are medalists on the last series will be like have an immediate pass to compete for the series? Are you saying that?
What I'm saying is the
Or are
medalists
you
from the
saying
last SEA Games were said to be automatic unless they get
mm,
beaten by other people, who go past their bronze medal standard. So say, for example, bronze medalist, let's say, for example, you have a guy like Sonny Wagdos who got bronze medal in the 5,000 meters. His time is 14:34. If two other people go faster than 14:34 and he doesn't, he loses his spot in SEA Games. But if nobody hits the standard and even he doesn't hit the standard, then he has the privilege of being the bronze medalist at the last SEA Games. So he basically uses that as a safety net to get into the next SEA Games. So they're basically saying that the medalists from the last SEA Games get in unless other people go past their standard from the last SEA Games.
I think I think first having a standard to qualify for the SEA Games is one of the basic requirements. I mean, if you really want to compete in a high level, actually SEA Games is really not that high level. But for Filipinos,
Exactly.
we see SEA Games as one of our Olympics. Okay, I think that's one of the is that we're looking SEA Games as our Olympics. Well, in fact, it should be that we should be aiming for more. Okay, so going back to what you mentioned, there should be first a qualify, the same as any other competition, especially like Olympics. There's always a qualifier. Okay, so hence, and actually it's really also case to case basis. So first, if the medalist, like the previous medalist, hits the standard, so he is privileged to to automatically to automatically enter like the race. However, if there are other like competitions or like other prospects who has the potential to also compete, to hit the standard, then they should also be on the list. Okay, so unless actually it would be also nice if like the association, if the sports association also gives like a timeline. It gives a timeline as to when is the final like standard. Because it's also case to case basis. Because like for this veterans, okay, this previous medalists, like experience wise, they have the experience now, so they haven't hit the standard. Sometimes there's a lucky run, okay, there's a lucky run, the lucky jump that they were able to surpass or like bring home medals during the SEA Games. Or however, for this like newcomers, sometimes if they lack competition or if they lack experience, sometimes they when the competition comes in na, or when during the competition, sometimes they choke. They choke. So sometimes the performance is not that good. So again, we should give fair um, fair competitions, like fair treatment to those uh, Southeast Asian, the previous Southeast Asian medalists, and also those potential athletes who qualify for the standard. That's my take.
I'm going to add that with the SEA Games, I would just like to add that, from a statistics point of view, that some events have varying levels of difficulty. Like take, for example, in the women's, the 5,000 metre qualifying time is only 17:52. You know, compare that to the 800 and the 1,500 with the bronze. The 800 is 209. The 1,500 is like 427, I think. Imagine 427 for the 1,500 is the equivalent of running about 16 minutes, 20 or 16 minutes in the 5K, but the standard is only 17:52 in the 5K. So it's a much easier standard in the 5K than it is in the 1,500. So, I mean, imagine if you're a athlete who runs 1,500 and you can't run 427, let's say you can run 440, you can probably qualify in the 5,000, but you can't qualify in the shorter race because you're off the time by about 14 or so. But then in the long, you've already got the speed to move up to the longer race. So that's also some considerations as well, that some events are just a lot easier to qualify for than certain events. Imagine, and say for example, the men's long jump. You jump, the top two guys jump 8 meters, and then the next about 780, 790. That's a pretty strong standard already. I mean, for Southeast Asian level, it's a strong standard compared to, say for example, what else? The Maybe the 110 hurdles at the moment is in the men is not so strong. I mean, it's 14.3 or 14.2 or something to get in the top three now. But like there's certain events which are a lot harder than other events to qualify for. And if you look at the performances based on the IAA scoring tables. There's a lot of variation in certain events. Like some events, imagine the men's pole vault now. But before, you can jump, you can get away with a 480, 490 jump and get a medal. But now, you need to jump at least 550 to get the bronze or 540 because there's EJ and those two tires. So the standards have really gone up in that event. So there's certain events which are really tough compared to, other events which are not, which athletes could theoretically qualify for them if they wanted to do them. Imagine also I don't know what else, the some events as well in the last SEA Games, they only had like 4 entries as well, or 5 or 4 entries. So everybody didn't go for certain events. So the standards in those events as well is not so high. I think the heptathlon women, the bronze standard isn't very high because there's only 4 of them competing, and the 4th place only needed to get. I think it wasn't even. It was nowhere near 5,000 points for the 4th place. I mean, Sarah got 5,100 and something, 101 points. In second, 480, 409, and third was about 4.6 or 4.7. Usually in the SEA Games, you need 5,000 points to get the bronze, but this time you only needed 4,600. So that means that the heptathlon's going to be easier to qualify for in this next SEA Games because the standard wasn't as high. Even in the women's marathon, was only, for 3 minutes something, for 3 hours something. So that wasn't so particularly high as well. But even for an example, the men's 1500, 406 won the gold, and 406 is the slowest time in the SEA Games in 42 years, 40 years or 42 years. It's the slowest winning time in SEA Games history. So the bronze was only 409 or 410. There's people in a row that are running that time. So that means that there's one tire easier to qualify for as well at the SEA Games because the standard was low because it was a technical race. So there are certain events which are really easy to qualify for, and some events which are really strong now at SEA Games level. Another question is, do you think that they're going to have any competitions between September and the start of the SEA Games in November?
Sorry, come again. What's your question?
Do you think they'll have any more tune-up meets before after the National Open in September? They'll have some more competitions overseas to get ready, or some more competitions locally to get ready for the SEA Games?
Sorry, one last time, Enzo. Sorry.
I'll just repeat that. Okay, so the National Open is scheduled for about September. The SEA Games is scheduled to start at the end of November. So that leaves probably 9 to 12 weeks or between the National Open and the SEA Games. So in the 9 to 12 weeks, do you think that they're going to have other competitions leading up to the SEA Games?
There should be competitions leading to that one. Well, I mean, if you're doing your periodization or your planning correctly, okay, as what I've mentioned, you can start with Southeast Asia National Open as your pre-competition. So again, it would be ideally like per month at the end of your, for example, your deloading phase, there should be like an evaluation, or there should be like an evaluation or a mini competition somehow. It's so that the intensity would be maintained. Yeah, it would be maintained, or like ideally, if you base your performance, it should be like somehow increasing or maintaining. It should be going downhill. So again, this like um, the sports association, or like if you have the luxury like to compete abroad and do and plot your competitions wisely, then that would be recommended. Because if you're just doing if you're just doing the national open, then wait for 2 months, 2 or 3 months, then do the Southeast Asian, um you might not achieve the peak that you wanted to. So, so again, that really depends on how your coach and like how your body reacts to the program of like to the program that your coach made. So, so yep, I really recommend that there should be like mini competition or tune-ups within those time span. If you
What
have
about
seen,
leading
that's
up
one of the
to
reasons
the?
EJ. Mhm. Sorry, you're there.
No, sorry, just continue regarding EJ. Yeah.
Okay, so that's like how EJ is doing right now. If you can see, it's like her competition is in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I think. I'm not sure. So it's because prior to Olympics, I think this month, this month is competition phase. That's why that's why his performance is either maintenance or going up. I think after that one, after the end of his last race, um, he would be like deloading, so he'd be going down again. So like go he would be like not resting but like a transition phase for another competition phase on July. So that's how the
What's his
competition should
age
be plotted
at
as well.
July? You said that he has a competition in July. What's his? Does he have a major competition before the Sea Games?
Sorry, come
Isn't
again.
it? Well, is the World Championships like still taking place this year, or oh yeah, the
I'm not
Olympics, of course.
sure.
So there's the
I
Olympics, the Sea Games. But are there any other meets that he's got coming up before the Olympics?
Sorry, Enzo, you were a bit choppy on your last question. That's why
Does
I
EJ
couldn't
have
hear it.
any other major competitions before the Olympic Games?
Oh. I'm not so sure because like the last time I talked to his dad, like his coach, his local coach, Coach Emerson, he mentioned like that was way back December, I think. So he mentioned that he'll be doing some indoor his next competition piece was indoor, which is yes, that's like he's doing right now. Um, if if I look the calendar, like assuming not, I haven't asked him yet, but assuming this is his competition phase, like at this moment his competition phase, it could be it could be ideal na after this phase, his next major competition would be the SEA Games. The Olympics na.
The
Okay?
Olympics.
So, oo. If I'm the one to question, June. Kasi, di ba, his last competition prior to, like, this month was it around September, October, November?
Um, Major competition.
Oo.
I don't know if in 2020 if he's
I'm
had
not
any
so
major competitions because I think in 2019 was the World Championships. I think in 2020 there hasn't been anything major because a lot of the indoor and the Asian meets got cancelled because of the COVID. So I think that his last major one must have been the World Champs in 2019.
I know he competed somewhere, where he broke somewhere, right? He broke the record, or like he has competition somewhere like that. Anyways, so again, for February, March, April, May, June, July. Ah,
Oh yeah, the other
um,
thing. Yep.
mm-mm. Sige,
The other
sige.
thing I want to add in
You were
was
saying?
also from the press conference with PATAFA that they had, also announced, according to my source, was that they've really got less candidates for the Olympics now as we close into the June qualifying. So apparently Willie Morrison is no longer in contention, is no longer doing meets to participate, to try to qualify for the Olympics at this point because he has some personal issues or something that that he's going through. So he's not, he'd be back for SEA Games, but the Olympic, he doesn't really intend to do any Olympic qualifying meets. So that basically he was one of the top contenders to qualify in the men's shot put, but no longer committing to trying to hit the standard at this point. So basically, if I look at it, there's really, in my view, there's only three people left there who can really have a good chance of qualifying for the Olympics. One of them wasn't even mentioned by PATAFA. Two of them were. Another one was, but I think that she's kind of out of the running at this point. So the ones who are in contention, there's three of them. Number one is Christina Knott. She's trying to qualify for the 2 and the 100. And she's got a really good chance, especially after those good 60-metre runs at the beginning of the year, and the fact that also in the 200 we take into account the qualification is 20 to 80, but according to my data you might not even need to run 20 to 80 to qualify because not only 31 out of 56 slots have been filled by athletes who run quicker than 20 to 80, so even 20 to 9 or 23 might be good enough to get a bonus slot. So that obviously it's better to hit the standard, but if there's a little bit of wiggle room in there if she doesn't. But undoubtedly she will. But what I'm saying is that only 31 of 56 have hit the standard for the number of slots that are allocated for the women's 200. Then in the 100, I've got data on that as well. I think she's around the same sort of placing in the 100 as well. I think about 31 or 32 out of 56 or so have hit the 200, the 100 meter standing. So I mean, she's ranked, I think according to my data, she's ranked about 36 or 35th and 36 in the world in those two events based on their times. Then also, Eric Cray is still kind of in the running, even though he needs to come out and run an outdoor 400 hurdles race at some point, and it's looking really snowy over where he is at the moment. So he has to just come out and go somewhere to run a 400 hurdles where he's got to hit that 48.90. Looking at how his times, he obviously needs to get his 400 down a little bit more to be able to come out and run that 48.90, but not a bad start. The other one who I think has a good chance of qualifying, who hasn't really been mentioned by the PATAFA at all, is Ian Nelson. So I mean, Ian Nelson's run 23.16, and as I said, only 31 women have ran under 22.80. So if the standard ends up, if anything under 23.10 gets you into the Olympics with 23.16, if Zion just comes down to 22.9 or 23.0, she might end up getting a bonus, one of those bonus slots into the Olympics if she hits, so you could theoretically have two women sprinters at the Olympics. There's a chance, there's quite a good chance you could have two women sprinters at the Olympics at this rate, because obviously Christina's training there with Rossan in Texas, and Carla with Rossan in Texas, so she's got a good training camp there. But also take into account that Zia Nelson is with the team at university with Coach Carol Gilbert at USC, so she's got some of the best sprinters in the collegiate system to train with, to race against, to spar with, to train with, to get her ready as well to try to hit that standard, which she'll be going for in about March. So they're both in very good situations to hit those standards. So there's a possibility there could be two in the Olympic Games, and then possibly Eric as well. So there's really 3 people left in contention at this point, in my view, to qualify for the Olympics. In the women's pole vault, I'll go into that. In the women's pole vault, there's not as many as 56 slots. There's about 32 slots. That's what's allocated. And 21 women have already jumped over the 470. So if we go down to 32 is about 455 at the moment. But by the time we get round to the Olympics, it'll be 460 or 465. So that means that Natalie has to jump by about 35 centimetres to get up to that Olympic qualifying at, PB of 427, 430s. She's going to jump about 35 centimetres more, about 30 centimetres more or so to actually get back to that standard, coming off a hand injury. So, it's like a little bit more tough to get up to that mark versus, the other 3 who've already been close or there in the past to the standards that they actually need. It won't require them making a massive PB. They might need a slight PB to get to a slight PB would get either of those 3 to the Olympics based on their previous performances, whereas Natalie needs a 30 centimetre gain to get to to get to those bonus spots for the Olympics based on the number of qualifiers at this point. So, what do you think about that analogy, Happy?
I have nothing to say yet. I'm sorry. I have nothing to say as of the moment. I think it would still depend on like the Olympics committee and like the athletes' performance if they would be able to hit the standard or not. Like if the Olympics is giving slots, okay, with or without breaking the standard or like the qualifying time, then that would be good news because we'll be having more participants, like Filipino participants for the Olympics. Oh, so I think that's all that I can say. Yeah. Nothing more. Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So the deadline for the events, I think it's June. For certain events, it's June. For some events, it's the end of May to the middle of June, depending on your event. For example, if we look at the women's marathon, there's like 84 slots, and there's already like 95 athletes qualified past the standard in that event. Imagine the women's marathon was 2:45 last 2 hours 45 last 2 hours and 45 minutes last SEA Games, and they reduced it. That now it's even harder. They changed it to 2 hours 29, so it got 16 minutes more difficult to qualify for the women's marathon. But even still, more than 84 women hit the standard for the number of slots. So like 95 already hit the standard, and there's still more time for more to actually qualify in for the marathon. So that the marathon standard may even need to go down to 2 hours 27 next time, because it's still very, a lot of athletes can still hit it quite easily. It's not like, imagine in the sprint events, imagine the men's 100. I remember back in, I think it was 2000 or the 2000 Olympics, there used to be the B standard. You could go to the Olympics if you ran about 10:30 or 10:29. You could go to the Olympics. Now you need to run 10:05 to get in. And in the men, I think only like 29 or 27 men out of 64 have ran under 10:05, because it's even though there's quite a few guys who run under 10, a lot of them are all from the same country. So it's really, there's most of those guys who run under 10 are from the US, or like, and then maybe before it was Jamaica, US, Jamaica, and Great Britain. That's where all the sub 10 guys are from. So that's why only 3 of them get to go, and that's why all the other countries struggle really hard to get sub 10 guys. Maybe South Africa probably, or Nigeria, they get sub 10 guys, but a lot of these other countries really struggle to get sub 10 because you almost need to be sub 10 to go to qualify. You need to be 10:05, so you're pretty much almost low 10 or sub 10 to even get into the Olympics. If you run 10:3, you won't even you don't even get you won't even get on the start list.
It would okay. So again, it's a tough competition for the women since as you mentioned there were 90 plus athletes qualified and only 80 plus are the slots available.
What I think will happen is, Happy,
Okay,
if you
so
have
it would be
more
really tough
athletes
for
than the
like
number of
this. Mm-mm. Sorry, come again.
if you have more athletes qualified, say for example, if the qualifying standard for the Olympics is 2 hours and 9:30, if you have for this 84 slots only, I think what they'll do is they'll allow more athletes in the number of slots. If you have more people, because they've all hit the standard, so you can't just say, oh, sorry, there's not enough slots, you can't go, because they've all hit the standard, and the standard is the main way to qualify. The bonus slots are just there just in case not enough people qualify. So if more people, if 100 people qualify, they'll probably let 100 people run because, they all achieve the standard, which is the main way of qualifying for the Olympics. But of course, if 100 people qualify by hitting the standard, there won't be any bonus slots left for anyone who didn't hit the standard.
Mm, okay, I get it.
Well, I think that they'll allow more people to go because let's put it this way: let's say if 100 people go for the women's marathon in um, in Tokyo and they go to the village, and let's say if some of them get tested positive for COVID, they won't be allowed to run. So obviously, just because 100 women are entered in the event doesn't mean they're all going to start. There might be some of them who can't get clearance to go out because they test positive for COVID before, or they test positive for COVID during the games. So there's possibilities that, that even though there's more than the number of slots, it might be that less of them actually compete because of COVID and other things preventing them from being able to start.
I see. Then that would be ano to? Uh, that would be I'm looking for the right term. Pero uh, then that would be a great motivator like for those athletes, especially our athletes who are competing in marathon, na to, to really work harder so that they would be able to hit the standard. Kasi I think I remember na hitting hitting the qualifying time is 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 another thing, and competing in an Olympics is another thing. So those two factors like the qualifiers and the Olympics are two different competitions. Sometimes
And
when you're looking,
it also
sige,
depends
go.
on the level of athlete you are. Because for some athletes, they have to basically go all out just to qualify for the Olympics. And by the time they get to the Olympics, they're already kind of worn. They're already kind of worn
Yes.
out. And when they go to the Olympics, they've already peaked to get to the Olympics. And then they just can't, they just can't peak again. So they're really just participating, and they're not performing as well as what they needed to get to the Olympics. But for me, just making the Olympics, even if you finish dead last, you actually still did the work to actually get to the Olympics, which is the important thing. I mean, some athletes, to be like a top 8 or an Olympic medalist or even a champion at the Olympics, you need to, a lot of it really boils down to genetics, and and obviously the work stuff, but genetics and all that sort of stuff. But the thing is that not everybody is at has that type of genetics where they can actually just come out and, like get like a top three. But just getting to the Olympics is already like very special in itself. Just having done the qualifying to actually legitimately get into the Olympics.
Yes, you're very right there, Phil. Because like before, I was wondering like how come like our athletes who compete in Olympics wouldn't be able to hit their personal best during the game, the Olympic itself. So I was wondering during that time. So when I asked one of my mentors, he told me, and I quote, um, those two, okay, wait lang. He mentioned that Olympics is really a different level, is a different level of competition. Okay, so you must have this extraordinary mindset and experience to be able uh, to be able to stand in the podium during Olympics. So so yun, sometimes like some of our athletes won't be able to even have their season's best during the Olympics. It's because one is their mindset, like their mindset is just to qualify or like to play for SEA Games is also a big thing, so that could be a factor. Second one is like the peaking, the environment of the competition of Olympics itself. It's too high that some of our athletes or some athletes won't be able to really be at par with. Okay? So I think I haven't mentioned it to you, Enzo, but EJ could be one of the top 8 in Olympics. It's because first, as of the moment, he's already competing with one of the top athletes in of the athletes in the world. So her experience-wise is already there. She's able to like
Yeah,
compete at their level of standard and stuff like that. However, for some of our athletes who haven't even trained or who haven't even competed with these top level athletes, they might be like intimidated when they're on the Olympic level itself. So that's one of the factors. Qualifying for the standard is one thing. Competing in the Olympics is another thing. So there's a lot of factors to really consider. Aside from the coaches programming, also the environment, like the competition environment, their mental toughness, and such and such. Yeah, and that's all it is.
when we discuss EJ, there was a quote like from a source which was from Philip Wico, president of PATAFA, regarding the only Olympic qualifier at this stage, EJ Obiena, like basically a prediction on how well that PATAFA felt that EJ was going to perform at the Olympics. So they said they want to keep a like basically they've said in the PATAFA's view, from the quote, they've said that with EJ, they're going to keep a modest view on how they feel he's going to perform, and they saying like he's a medal chance he's a medal chance is what a chance to be a medalist, like the first medalist in the Olympics since Miguel White way back in the 1936 Berlin Olympics in the 400 hurdles. That was their view. So my view is in line with what you said, Happy, where you said that EJ has can be certainly be in the top 8. But as we know, if you make the top 8 in an event, let's say even like in a lower competition like the Polaroon Bun. So once you're in the top 8, usually the top 2 are usually very exceptional compared to everybody else, and then the 3rd to the 8th is basically, as you said before, lucky jump, anybody's game, because everyone's fairly evenly matched. It comes down to nerves, it comes down to who wants it more on the day, it comes more to even in athletics, if somebody's got got an ingrown toenail sometimes. So there's a lot of factors, that can determine your placing from 3rd to 8th. But I honestly think that the gold and the silver medalists are usually a lot more exceptional than everybody else, or especially the gold medalist. And in this case, in the men's pole vault, Duplantis, I mean, consistently over 6 meters, world record holder and Olympic record holder in the pole vault at 6:15 and 6:16, who's looked almost untouchable this season. And I'd also not rule out, because a lot of people were saying that Ronald Levelani was already very old at 35, but Ronald Levelani has jumped 6:02 this year, and he's been jumping better than he's been jumping the last 4 or 5 years. He's really, he's really sort of come into form this year as well. The other athlete I think that we also need to watch for is, I think his name's Chris Nilsson from the United States. He's jumped 5:92 and 5:95 this year. He's jumped 2 PBs. So, he's also like a dark horse in that event as well. So I think that, EJ is in really good shape, having jumped PB 586. He's in really good shape and very good contention. But, there's still a long way to go to the Olympics. I mean, it's early at the moment, so, there's a lot to be done.
Okay. Actually, yes, you do. You. That's why you are correct at that one. That's what I meant. That's why like I mentioned he could be on the top 8. Also, there is a chance for the 8. So top 8 is because, as you mentioned, I forgot the other, like the French guy and the USA guy. It could be na at this point the reason why they're not having a good performance yet is because like they could be under pre-comp phase. We really don't know. Okay, so again, it will that's also a factor because those like the names that you mentioned, like the ones who were jumping 6 meters and those other athletes, they're more exposed to competition like this. Like they're more exposed to world championships, to Olympics, to other competitions. That's why, as what I've mentioned before, they have the experience, so they can use their quote unquote veteran move. Because again, Olympics is a different, is another, it's another side of the story. There's a lot of pressure. I'm not sure right now since we're in pandemic, so I'm not sure there will be a lot of people watching. But then again, the competition within the Olympics is really different compared to the usual competitions right now. However, EJ could depends on how well his course or not well as well logically or other things would you finish. If not, if his competitors are doing well mentally, physically, etc., then EJ not have a podium finish. So again, it's case to case basis. So again, it's because some has more experience, has more competitions in high. So again, it's really like a lot of factors to consider. So yun. I think yun lang naman.
At the last Olympics, in the men's pole vault, Thiago Braz, EJ's teammate, he really showed, like he really tipped over the card on the big boys in terms of the men's pole vault, because I mean he wasn't expected to win, but Thiago Braz from Brazil just came out and he got the edge over Lavaleni at the last Olympics, and then then Duplantis emerged on the scene after that.
Yes, I remember that part. So again, it's a lot of factors. We have this in jumpers we have this quote unquote lucky jump. So maybe Thiago during that time had his lucky jump. So, ayun, also maybe, who's his competitor during that time? It's the French guy, right? I forgot the name.
Lavellini, because at
Right?
that point,
Lavellini.
you know, yeah, because Duplantis is very young. You know, I think Duplantis is only like 21 or 22. So, you know, in the last Olympics, Duplantis was only 17 years old, and he wasn't, you know, he wasn't really anybody at that point. It was only, I believe, you know, by about 2018 that Duplantis really started coming onto the scene because he's really young. Whereas Lavellini's 35. Duplantis is about 21 at this point.
Then we'll just wait for for the Olympics. I don't have a definite answer right now, but if if that 20-year-old guy, I think if that young kid would be is starting to like is 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 his career just started yet, so there's a chance that he may surpass Lavellini, yeah, the 35-year-old. So yun, again,
He already has.
it's
He already has.
oh yeah, oh, is that the first guy or the Sweden guy?
Duplantis from Sweden. Um, Before Lavellini had broke the world record of Bubka, then Duplantis broke the world record of Renard Lavellini. So Duplantis is the current world record holder, but he's only 21 years of age.
Well, good for him. I mean, he has a good coach. He got the he had like genetics as well. His training is really good. His competition is good as well. Then, yun,
I think
let's
he
wait for
trained
the
in Florida,
Olympics.
if I'm not mistaken. I think Duplantis was. I think he trained over in Florida. He represents Sweden, but I think he grew up in Florida.
Hmm. Oh, well, actually, I'll just wait for the Olympics because again, Olympics is a different competition. World Championship is a different competition. European Championship or whatsoever international competitions is a different one. So it's it's how again their coach or their body respond to the stresses of the Olympics if they would be able to have a peak performance or not. So again, I'll just wait for the Olympics. I really don't have a definite answer right now. I'll just be waiting for the Olympics to see if Lavellini would be able to still defend his no. He did not defend his title, but he would be having a gold this time.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the top three sort themselves out in this Olympics. I mean, I'm pretty sure on Duplantis, but you know, it'll be interesting how the second and third sort themselves out among the rest.
Sorry.
I'm pretty sure about Duplantis at this point, but you know, it's months away. If the Olympics was now, for sure Duplantis would win. If the Olympics was now, but you know, a lot can happen in 6 to 7 months.
Yes.
But if the Olympics was now, Duplantis and Lavellini would probably get gold and silver if it was now. But so that's why I'm saying that if the Olympics was now, they'd probably get gold and silver. EJ would be in the top 8. But that's if it
Yep.
was now. But there is 6 or 7 months, so a lot can happen in 6 or 7. You know,
Yes.
well, I don't know if it's 6 or 7 months. What month is it? Is it July or August or
It's
June?
July, I think. I'll check
That
Olympics.
that's
Yeah, a
March,
lot of
April,
happen.
May. So it's about 3 or 4 months. So
It's
yeah,
in
it's not.
July.
So maybe a bit can happen, and not a lot, but a bit can happen still. Then in that case, because you know, 4 months is still time, but it's not that much it's not that much time. I thought it was 6 or 8 months, but if it's if it's 3 or 4 months, it's there can still be some changes, I guess, but not a lot.
5 months actually. 5 months and two
Five,
weeks. 5 months and 2 weeks.
but that's still a while to go. Then if it's that's still quite a while to go. 5 months.
Well, a lot can happen. A lot, right? That's the term I was looking for. A lot can happen. Yeah, like injuries. Um, yeah, it really depends on how their coach would really tweak their training or like their programming. It really depends on the coach. Because if you're doing as I remember, I read one of the articles. If you're having a high level competition, when you meant high level or elite competition, that's Olympic level or World Championship level, okay, not SEA Games level. So then if you're competing for high level competitions, um, sometimes the programming doesn't really work. The periodization sometimes doesn't work. It's because it's very hard to during that time it's very hard to really make improvement because you're already in a high level. It's like um you you've founded everything already. So a small increment of or a small improvement takes months to prepare for. So again, depends on your coach's experience or like your coach's knowledge on how he was able to pick your programming. It sometimes may tell na, okay, it depends on your body's adaptation. For example, you didn't train yesterday, but however for today you're not feeling well or not doing well. So sometimes the coach will pick on it. So that's how flexible the coach would be if he or she is in an elite level, because there's really a lot of factors to consider. However, for local or for younger athletes, periodization really works well. But then again, if you have more training experience, your competition is high enough, sometimes the periodization doesn't work anymore. Sometimes. Okay, I'm not saying it doesn't work completely. Sometimes it doesn't work because again there's a lot of factors to
Well, it has to
consider.
be. I wouldn't say it doesn't entirely work, but I would say that adaptations need to be made to the model to in order to try to maximise the performance. Then adaptations would need to be made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Yep, yep.
And yeah, you're right. As an athlete gets better, it gets harder to get those incremental performances as they become more um, what would be the word, more um, conscious or more aware of how they're actually performing. Like it gets harder to get those increments. I mean, like for example, you have a beginner athlete, like a complete novice athlete who's not really that well rounded to start off with. That athlete, he or she might break their PB 10 times in the year. So they might,
Yes.
say for example, you got a girl running 16 seconds in the 100. She might break her time. She might run 15.5, 15 flat, 14.5, 14.3 until she gets down to about maybe 13 in a year. But then again, when you got that athlete the second year, you might get it from 13 to maybe 12.5. Like you're not going to get as big a jump in the second year with an athlete as what you got in the first year because there's less gains for them to make as they get more, as they get more experience. There's less gains for them to make from the first year is always the biggest jump with athletes, and then after that, it's basically diminishing improvements each year after that. But there can still be improvements, even if the improvements are less. So, like, if you get, maybe you go from like 16-13 the first year, 13 to 12-5, then 12-5 to 12-2, then maybe 12-2 to 12, and then 12 to 11-8 or 11-9, and then 11-8 to 7. You know, you can still be, you know, the athlete's still improving, but not by as much each year.
Sorry, come again.
Now, what my example was here, that was when you have a novice or a beginner athlete, in the first year, they're going to make a big jump, and then the years after that, the jump's going to get smaller. So I took, for example, a female sprinter for 100 meters. So say for the first, she comes to you, she's running 16 seconds, and she's never really done that much training. She hasn't done anything, you know, but she just runs a 16 seconds in the first trial you give her. Then after a year, she might go 15.5, 15.4, 15.2, 15.48, and then she might end up getting down to about 13 flat. So let's say you've got 3 second improvement in the first year, 16, 13 flat. You're not going to go 3 seconds in the second year because that's 10 flat, and that's kind of impossible. So in the second year, she might go 13 flat to 12.5. Then in the third year, she might go 12.5 to 12.2. In the fourth year, she might go 12.2 to 12 flat. Then in the fifth year, she might go 12 flat to about 11.8 or 11.9, then 11.7 in the sixth year. So what I'm saying is she's improving, but the gains are less each year because, you know, she's getting more experience. So there's less things that you can actually do that lead to major gains. Because, you know, imagine the first year, you're teaching her basically drills, how to run properly, how to use spike shoes, probably how to use blocks, just plyometrics, just all the basic stuff, which is the most important. But as time goes on, you need to find other ways to improve the athlete. In the second year, you might need to add in quite a bit of, you know, like lifts and strengthening stuff that helps her. It might gain you another half. Then after that, you probably need to go into video analysis and, you know, get more technical about like athletes form and things that you tricks. And so then it becomes like
Sorry. Yes, you're completely correct. You are correct. With that one. Because like I forgot the right term. Pero yun, as your training experience increases, your training gains decreases. That's why Olympic level sometimes there's a lot of the coaches will do a lot of, like as you mentioned, it could be due to your shoes, due to your equipment, due to your this one of the big factors there, okay, is is your mental health,
yeah.
the stresses, simple as your recovery, how your lifestyle, like your sleeping patterns, your nutrition, that's really a big factor to consider. Yeah, sometimes you'll be doing, for example, as your experience get older, for example, those in a sprint, that 20 millisecond, that 0.20 millisecond that you be decreasing your time, so you're more faster, takes, for example, 4 months or 6 months in preparation. That's how um, that's how complex it gets when you're more experienced athlete now. So yeah.
I mean, it gets to the point in sprints where, you know, like when you're looking for millisecond gains, it gets to the point, you know, where your steps land, you know, the length of your steps and where they land. It gets to that point with video analysis as well, where they even look at, you know, the amount of force you're putting into the ground, the amount of, you know, where your steps actually land as well, into the aspect of, you know, just gaining, you know, just a slight millisecond over, you know, the foot placements in the sprint. You know, strides are you taking, how long are those strides, how well are they placed, how efficient are those strides. You know, it gets to like the very minute details once an athlete gets to that level. Anyway, I think it's been good talking. We've been chatting for about an hour and a bit, but thanks for coming on, and also thanks, Brian, for coming on. I think we'll just wrap this up for tonight. It's about 12:30 here. Okay. All right. So I'd just like to thank all the viewers tonight for coming on and supporting us. So shout outs to the following. To the athletes: Yuhai Go, Samantha Victor, Romel Rubico, Ninoy Marayak, Mary Martez, Laika Jana, Markovin Revelia, Japsi Nabor, Leoka Serrano, Rule Barona, Rem Celestial, Ronel Alburica, JP Morales, Anthony Jimenez, Wenlake Montero, Mina Daigam, and Cristobal Martez, Domingo Manata, and many others who I'd also like to thank for turning up tonight. Well, it's now 12:30 here, and I hope you get some rest. Anyway, thank you everybody for showing your support tonight, and we should be back on Thursday. It's now actually Wednesday here. Thank you all, and good night. Okay, now hopefully this is working. I was having issues with Zoom. Now hopefully StreamYard's working, and it does seem to be. Okay, good. Okay, so I'll start again. So it's been one hell of a day. Well, one hell of the last couple of days helping Jason Operio from Iloilo Athletics with his virtual meet. It's been a lot of checking of results, type ups, write ups, uploading videos, editing videos, and counter checking results and more checking of results. So it's been a pretty busy long weekend with Friday as well. Anyway, it was a rather successful Philippine Nationals 3,000 meter virtual championships, and we'll be later discussing some of those results. Now, I'm just going to begin off with some breaking news from Southeast Asian athletic news, and the breaking news is that this guy here, the Thai American Eagle, Kieran Tuntivate, has just absolutely smashed his Southeast Asian record in the 10,000 meter men's. I'm going to just read out the article again. I read it out on Zoom, but I wasn't live. So I'm just going to read out the article on the Thai American Eagle. So SEA Games 5,000 and 10,000 meter champion Kieran Tuntivate of Thailand over-delivered on his brave statement that he would break 28 minutes this weekend. Tuntivate absolutely smashed his Southeast Asian 10,000 meter record of 28 minutes 45.61 set in Raleigh, USA on the 29th of March 2019. The 24-year-old Thai American who studies at Harvard took nearly 1.5 minutes off his previous best with an Olympic qualifying time of 27 minutes 17 seconds, 0.14. Kieran went under the Olympic standard of 27 minutes 28, placing 5th in a tightly contested finish at the San Juan Capistrano meet in California, USA. Mark Scott of Great Britain won from Americans Grant Fisher, Woody Kincard, and Ben True. So there was only a 5-second gap between these 5 men, and all of them hit under the 27-minute 28 Olympic standard for the men's 10,000 meters at the Tokyo Olympics. Kieran became the second Southeast Asian athlete behind Ernest Obiena of the Philippines, pole vault, to qualify outright in the Olympics in track and field. According to LetsRun.com, Kieran has the 4th fastest time in Asian track and field history, behind 3 athletes who were originally from Africa. The 5 sub-27:20 Asian runners in history. So Kieran joins an elite group of 5. Okay, now the next update on Southeast Asian athletic news is that Russell Nasser Taib, the Malaysian record holder in the 200 meters and the SEA Games bronze medalist in the 200 meters, has now opened his season in Nathan, Queensland, Australia, with a opening time of 21.24 in the men's 200 meters. So that's a second piece of athletic news there. Now, I'm going to share some other results that we have. So one of the things, before I get into that, one of the things that I've had is that on Facebook, where there seems to be like a little bit of a block with Australian internet users being able to post news articles. I've been able to post some, but I've been limited with some. So I would encourage. So now I've decided this is an opportunity to grow my YouTube channel, which has over 5,000 subscribers at the moment, at youtube.com/Pinoyathletics. I didn't really pay much attention to watering that garden. The page. So now I'm sorting that out at the moment and trying to grow the YouTube channel by putting up more videos there. Obviously, that's a source of traffic to the website that I've kind of neglected. Anyway, we'll share some images from today from the virtual meet before we announce the results and the winners. But first off, I'd like to share some of the results from the 10,000 meter run that was held at University of the Philippines earlier today. I mean, we also had, you know, that competition running as well at the same time. I don't know if you can see that. I might have to zoom in a bit. Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. More zoom in, more zoom in. Zoom in. Okay, hopefully that should be big enough now to see on the screen, I hope. I might zoom in a bit more because it's not zoom. Oh, no. Okay. Maybe move it down a bit so we can actually see what's on there. All right, so concurrently with the National 3000 Virtual Championships, running at the same time was the 10K actual run, but Barkin won at League 1 at UP Academic Oval, UP Diliman, and these were some of the results we had. So in the results, we had the winner, Junel Gabocha, the representative of the Philippines in the SEA Games in the steeplechase. He won the event in 34.35. EJ Lee Jr., who I think also was busy and joined our 3K event as well while he was at it, was second in 34 minutes 48. And the race organizer himself, Wilfred Esforma, was third in 34:51. So these are the results. I'll put them up on my website later for everybody to view at pinoyathletics.info. Those will be going up either later today or tomorrow. Shout outs to our people watching tonight. Greetings to Giant Martin James Esteban, the Polaroid record holder in the triple jump. Reginald, a long distance coach from Singapore, originally from Bago City. Jocelyn Elagiran, who joined this event and our last event. Joshua Navo, Christian Ayuko, and Coach Shaolin Barok from Kakendioro. And also Rommel Rubico. Okay, so now we're going to discuss the results of the event. Just bear with me for a minute while I open those up. Actually, but before we go into discussing the event itself, we've got some photos to share. So let's have a quick look. So I'm just going to have some acknowledgement. So yeah, so this is one of the photos from the event today at Binyan. It was good to see the people's champion, Sonny Wagdos, the SEA Games bronze medalist in the 5,000 meters. You know, despite the fact it's COVID and obviously it hasn't been very easy to train, and you know he's just getting back into the groove of things at the moment, and you know, on the grind towards getting ready for his second SEA Games at the end of the year. He opened his season with 3,000 meters in Binyan, and it was really good to see you know, a higher profile athlete of SEA Games medalist, in fact, you know, reach out to the athletic community and you know, just get involved and, you know, help pace some kids. There were 3 young athletes in the event, and he wasn't in the best of shape himself because he's just getting back into training, but you know, like, he's on the grind, and you know, he'll improve as the season progresses. Obviously still a lot of work to do, but got out there, always has that smile on his face. Had a good support crew come out to support him. You know, always a people pleaser, and you know, we're very thankful to have him at the event, and the fact that, you know, he really helped out the younger athletes today, and you know, really provide a lot of motivation. So it was good to have Sonny at the event, and we hope to see him and you know, other SEA Games level athletes at join these events, because it's really to help them on the way to the preparing for the SEA Games and the SEA Games trials and that sort of thing. So shout out to Lythe Jana as well. So I'm going to share some more photos with you today. Lots of happy faces out there, which was good to see. So this is at Binyan Oval, which is now open to the public in Laguna. So no problems there. The oval's been now open to the public. So as you can see, it is very open to the public because it's always a swamp of joggers. So it doesn't get more public than having joggers at an oval, meaning that the oval's now allowably open for everyone to use down there in Binyan and Laguna. So these are the kids who ran with Sonny Wagdos today from the Columba Athletics team. So a shout out to Team Muscular Athletics and their coach York Tamayo, who actually helped pace that guy in the black for the last 150 meters of the race. The guy in the black improved 15:48 to 12:21 in the race today. So it was much appreciated, and PBs all around for kids, and like all around a pretty good event. And just moving on to some more photos we had of from the event. Let's have a look here. Here we go. There we go. One probably, you know, if we're talking about taking, you know, if we're talking about getting prizes for taking selfies, what about this one? Taking a selfie of a selfie. So very good work. And what else have we got here before we go into the full results? Oh yeah, I'll discuss my next event after. I think after I've read the full results, because I think we need to move into the into the results now of the event. So I'm just going to see if I can zoom it. I'm going to have to zoom these results in because they're going to be really, what's the word, difficult to read out. So I'll just share that screen. And these results will all be available on the Pinoyathletics website later on, so stay tuned. I'm not sure if that's probably visible, I would say. Okay, so these are the results of the, well, let's change that top part. There you go. Done. So now that's a bit better. Okay. All right. So these are the full results of the competition. So we're going to announce the top three, and I'm just checking to make sure that they have been announced officially on the group before I continue with this. Okay, so all right, in the men, these are the results. So these are the top results. So I'll stick to probably the top 10. So as agreed by Jason, he did as the organizer. So Pinoyathletics was just helping, but this really was Jason's event. And as Jason stated, he was offering prize money for the top three. Oh yeah, but before I announce the winners and that sort of thing, and the prize money and that sort of thing, I want to give a very special shout out to a good friend of mine, Catherine K. Santos, the dude, for joining us tonight. Now, the 3,000 meters virtual championships, the top three. So announcing the top three. shout out to Jerix as well. He should probably be in here with me in this room. I'll just... Anyhow, the top 3 in our competition. So, in first place, the Palarong Pambansa 1500 meter record holder, the Palarong Pambansa 5000 meter champion, the winner of the BBGH run PH 10,000 meters in January, also the winner of the Pinoyathletics Talking Pinoy 5,000 meters in January. In February, the runner-up in the Pinoyathletics Fantasia 1,000 meter event, and also again the champion in the 2021 Philippine National Virtual 3,000 meter championships. The rising star, the rising star of men's long distance running, the pride of Iloilo, Alfrense Braza, with a time of 8 minutes 51, a new personal best. In second place, Ed Carlo Sibeliano, the NCAA champion in the 800 and the 1500 meters in the 2019 NCAA Philippines. Runner-up with a personal best of 8 minutes and 57 seconds. And in third place, just 18 years of age, a Western Visayas regional runner-up in the 1500 meters in previous years. Coming out of a emerging power squad from Bago City and from Coach Reginald, based in Singapore. So he's another online coach who's really doing his bit to help develop athletes in the Philippines. MJ Maldegua with a personal best of 9 minutes and 3 seconds. And I'm just going to read down the top 10 and make any notable remarks about those in the top 10. So, fourth, John Martir from Bago City, only 16 years of age. Benji Duhak from Agusan del Sur, from NGRC. The other 2 boys from H12 coaching. Mary Kevin Revilla from Violet Runners in Mandawi City with a time of 9:27. UAAP 1500 and 800 record holder Elbrin Neri from Tungub City, representing the Pinoyathletics team with a time of 9 minutes 34. Rojan Aguirre from Iloilo, representing CPU runners with a time of 9 minutes 34. Roberto Panganiban from Bataan, representing Maravillas runners with a time of 9 minutes 38. And in 10th place, the SEA Games bronze medalist in the 10,000 meters, Sonny Wagdos, with a opening time and a very easy win at Banyan today, representing Lythe from originally from Davra and representing Lythe City Batangas, representing the AETDC mentors with a time of 9 minutes 42. So I'm not going to go through the whole list because we'll probably be here all night, but the full list will be available on Pinoyathletics. And I'm just going through the shout-outs. Jirex Quintinho, Vincent Barredo, Harley Sis Dual, and a wow from Dawn, and a wow back to Dawn. Okay. Now, I'll announce the winners in the top 10 in the women. So, we'll just say that, you know, in the men, 851. Going back to the men, and this is some other additional statistical useful info in the men. So in the men, nobody really got that close to tickling the national record of the great Vertec, Eduardo Buenavista, which is 817. So that record was well and truly safe. Vertec, of course, now the national long distance coach. His record was well and truly safe. It didn't look in danger. Absolutely no threats to it at this stage. A bit of work to do to get towards that sort of time of 8:17. Still, you know, light years of around 30, 34 seconds gap from that time. However, the national junior record, which has stood for 42 years, of Nelson Kadiva, set in 1979, before most of us were even born, of 8 minutes 56.2. That, you know, MJ Maldaguya, who's born in 2002 and, you know, ran that 9:03 on a dirt track, you know, got pretty close to touching that record up. It probably won't be long before you know, with some good meets in there, that MJ will look at erasing that sort of time. So again, these meets are good because we it highlights not only established stars like the likes of well, we could say Braza is now an emerging established star, Neres and the Wagdosses, but we also, and, you know, Ed Carlos, you know, sort of an emerging talent, but he's already an NCAA champion, so he's an emerging, you know, he's a rising star, I would say. But we also find new athletes we didn't even know about, like Mel Digua and Matur. These are young guys, you know, who are with private coaches that are coming up. That these are names to definitely watch for. But now I'll go to the women's results. So again, in the women's results, the national records and the national junior records are looking, you know, very, very safe from anyone really in this field. We didn't really have a superstar athlete in this event, like the likes of a Tabal or a Christine Halasco or Jordan Gagnell or anybody of that, you know, of SEA Games medal caliber, but, you know, it was still a tightly contested competition. And, you know, the national record of Marietta Tambangan Magno is looking very safe, I would say, because there's more than a minute to whom the winner. But we'll be announcing now, and I'll be giving a little bit of information on the top 3, on top 10 actually. A shout out to Paul Diaz and Leo Olau. So, yeah, so I'll just begin off by discussing the winner, and then I'll scroll through the top 10. So, the winner of this event was a surprise because, you know, she's not a conventional runner with a lot of speed, but she really, you know, has good endurance, and she really distributes and, you know, uses and has very, you know, like masterful, wise knowledge of her pace. So she was able to really, you know, use her many years of experience as an athlete, you know, to get the edge over her stronger, younger, faster opponents by running a smarter race. So the winner of the women's 2021 3,000 meter national virtual championships of the Philippines is none other than Lani Cadona Adawag from Lingayen, Pangasinan, and a proud member of Team Titus, a stable of athletes coached by the legendary walkathon coach Saturnino Salazar, also known as Coach Titus. Lania Dowak, she won the Pinoyathletics 5,000 meter virtual event. I would say that 3,000 meters is, it's a bit shorter than the event she usually runs, and it's probably the shortest event she can probably still do good at. I mean, she runs everything from 3,000 right up to the marathons. A well-established athlete on the Philippine road circuit. Also, the very interesting thing about Lani is she already has 2 kids, and she's already around 30 years of age. But she said, the last time she ran a 3,000 meter event was 11 minutes and 19.20, way back at 2009 Philippine National Track and Field Championships in Lingayen, when she won the junior title. And among the athletes she defeated in that race as a junior was Jessa Mangsat from Baguio, who eventually became the Philippine record holder in the steeplechase, and also was a member of the national training pool for a number of years. Shout out also to Brains Bossing and the Boar, Ninoy Mariag. Okay, now, so Lania Dowd, time of 10:53. Another masteral run with a 26-second improvement off her personal best. So a new personal best of 10:53. In second place, another one of the older athletes in the field and one of the older athletes on the circuit, Nian Basena, who first came to fame as the famous Milo girl on the old Milo adverts, jumping over the hurdle with the backpack on. So Nian, also another athlete who began like Lani more in the middle distance events, but as got older moved into long distance events. So she is the still the UAAP record holder in the 1,500 meters, and 4-time Milo marathon, half marathon champion. So Nian, again, in our last 5K competition, was the runner-up behind Lani, and again she's finished with the silver behind Lani again. This time with a performance of 11:04. So she's based in Bonifacio Global City Taguig for running for Basena's Running Warriors with a time of 11 minutes and 4 seconds. Okay, in the third place is Edna Magtubo from Iloilo, another young runner who is representing Iloilo Athletics. She took the third place with 11:26. So Edna is the national PRISA champion in the 15 and 3,000 meters. In fourth place, Paui Fonaya, bronze medalist in the SEA Games duathlon meet in the mixed relays in the last SEA Games, from Cavite, representing Standard Insurance, and the Philippine Navy, was fourth in 11 minutes 29. April Joy Alampayan from Bohol, LOM athletes, took fifth in 11:29.3. Ruby Gale Puyo from Iloilo, representing Western Visayas State University, took sixth in 11:32. She's the SCUA National 10,000 meter champion. And finalizing the field, I will only read you down to the last 10. Leslie De Lima from Camarines Sur, Rinconada, representing the team, Rick Canada. She is the back-to-back Palarong Pambansa secondary girls champion in the 1500 and the 3000 meters, and just getting back into shape, improving from her last couple of runs. So 2018 and 2019 1500 and 3000 meter secondary girls champion of the Palarong Pambansa, with a PB of about 10:30, so 10:20, 10:30. So still a while to go to get to there. She took third place in the Pinoyathletics Talking Chinoy virtual meet, behind the older athletes Lanny and Nian. She also, she took fourth in the 1000 meters in the Fantasia Pinoyathletics meet. In eighth place, Mylene Campomar from Don Carlos Bukidnon, representing DCRC, BTR, and BBG, with time 11:58. Ninth place, April Rose Diaz, another established runner on the road running circuit of the Philippines from General Santos City, representing Riot here, with a time of 12 minutes. And rounding up the top 10 is Davina Mahusi from Camarines Norte, Cantafa, with a time of 12:18. So Mahusi is the Palarong Pambansa bronze medalist in the secondary girls 200 and 400 meters. So sprinter stepping up and trying some middle distances. She also ran a brilliant 300 meters in the Pinoyathletics Fantasia meet in a straight line on an airport runway, and also stepped up and won the 1,000 meters at the Pinoyathletics Fantasia meet. So shout outs again to those watching. Jezreel Baggio, also a shout out to him. So that's just the announcements on the show. So everybody watching, who joined this event, thank you very much for supporting the event and keeping the flame going strong for Philippine athletics. As this was Jason Aperio and Elo Athletics community, and Pinoy Athletics was more than happy to step in and help our friends with this event. We will now pass this over to Jason. He's not able to get on to Zoom because of internet connections, but he will update everyone in the room about the certificates and the prizes being awarded to the top 3 as promised at the start of this meet. So Jason will discuss in more detail in the Facebook group regarding that. Now, before I go, I'm just going to quickly advertise our next upcoming meet, organised this time by Pinoy Athletics, known as the Sprintopia event. Now, with more stadiums and ovals opening up across the country, it is to the public. It is now more possible to have these virtual events in athletic stadiums. So this next event will be exclusively for athletic stadiums, unless there can be some assurance of accurate measurements if held elsewhere. Now, just sharing the screen. Stop that screen and share another screen, which will be the screen, this one. So this is the Sprintopia event. The Sprintopia event, organised by Pinoy Athletics, will be scheduled from March the 13th to March the 14th. The event's taking place so purely for the sprinters, 100, 200 and 400 meters. Please email your name, event choices, year of birth, best time, venue, and track oval being used. So we do require a track oval being used this time. Whether it's dirt or rubberized is fine, but we require a track oval for joining this meet. Also, I would also provide gender as well, because some names are a little bit confusing. So email that all to pinoyathletics@gmail.com. we're not charging any entry fee as we're trying to, keep athletics free and accessible. And we know people are struggling, with financial difficulties. There's a lot of people are out of work and, that like trying to put food on the table. So we're not going to be charging any entry fees for this meet, as pure Pinoy athletics events have been free. So the 60 meters was free, the Fantasia was free, and now this is free. Just when we help out, other race organisers, if they want to charge, to have prize money, that's cool. So there's two ways you can do these meets: either prize money and pay to enter, or free and no prize money, which is what I decided to do, because I just feel that more so than the prize money, the importance is giving athletes some meets to sort of keep them motivated. So entries must be in no later than March the 10th, and absolutely no late entries will be accommodated. But put it this way, there's been, I opened up the entries, so I opened up the entries during the Fantasia meet on the 7th, so pretty much I've given athletes, I've given everybody about 35 days, to put entries in. So there's absolutely no excuse, because this has been well advertised and it's been well, it's been well reminded about this event. So, we will absolutely not tolerate any late entries. And some people learned at the last meet that we're very strict on that, and we will continue to be very strict on that, because you've got to enter. You can't just decide and and at the last minute and go, oh yeah, I might enter. Well, once the deadline's over, then that's pretty much it. You've got to make sure that you enter on time for these events, just like anything else. If you're going to jump on a bus, if you're an hour late, you miss the bus. It's not going to be there for you. And if you go to a job interview and you're an hour late, you're for sure not going to get the job, and the interviewer is not going to wait around. So I don't see how, having a deadline to enter a competition is any different. And that just, shows a higher level of professionalism when it comes to running meets that we need to stick to. And, as soon as you make compromises for that, the whole structure and the whole consistency of the meet just falls apart. And, we need to make sure that we're consistent in what we do and fair in what we do, and we don't, bend rules for people, because once you start bending rules, then you're no longer running the meet, and everybody else is basically dictating how things are being done. So anyway, shout out to the rest of the people watching. So York, Tamayo, Evalau, Abutus, and Frigilin Roncalis. Okay, that's it for tonight. So that's 40 minutes, and I think that's it. That's all. So all the entries, all the people who entered the meet, that you can follow up with Jason Aperio regarding the certificates. He'll be doing those, and also organising the prize money for the top 3 via Gcash. Oh yeah, and finally, good evening to the Piosaurus. Anybody there who's just joined as I'm about to leave. Anyhow, good night, everybody, and we're more than likely to have another track book on Tuesday. I'm supposed to be Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, but 3 a week is a bit hectic, and I need to probably get a bit more sleep, as you can see. So tentatively we'll be on Tuesday again, but if we don't have enough news, it's not worth it. And if it's too busy, then I end up just stockpiling the news to the next edition. So good night, everybody, and have a good one. Thanks for tuning in, and bye. And we're live. Okay, good evening to another edition of Pinoyathletics Sunday Track Talk, the last day of the month for February 2021. So a few things to discuss tonight. I'm just going to bring up the slideshow. Okay, so no introductions are necessary there. I'm just going to bring up the next set of slides while I navigate through. Yeah, so I'll begin off by discussing some happenings and site stats for the website. So it's been a pretty pleasing month of January, despite some setbacks, which I'll cover in a moment. Initially, my goal for this month of sorry, it should be February on there. For February 2021 was to get past last year's February, which was 14,280 visits. My goal was to get to 20, to get over 20,000 visits, which would be well past last year's, and I was able to secure 23,606 visits. So growth of nearly 9,000 readers for this particular month. So I was pretty happy with that, despite I didn't know if I was going to get it because there was a setback this month. The setback was that Facebook had and the Australian government. So the Australian government decided to put tax or through media companies charge Facebook a percentage tax, and Facebook in retaliation decided to prevent any Australian internet users posting links to news sites, which basically stunted me from not being able to use Facebook to draw traffic. So I used the downtime for 10 days while Facebook and the Australian government sorted out their differences to work on building my YouTube channel. The YouTube channel wasn't really starting from scratch because it already had 5,200 members, subscribers, as you call them. But I was just working on editing and repurposing videos, putting logos in, and just going through some old videos, merging videos and releasing new videos. Yeah, just working on repurposing YouTube videos. So that's initially how I spent the downtime, was just sort of upgrading my YouTube channel while my access to Facebook page was totally cut off. As well as that, so recently I've gone back through some old archive articles, like looking back at when I was organising the weekly relays from 2013 to 2015. So I was giving my perspective from event management experience on a 30,000 word report on the 2014 weekly relays, which is being edited because it's like younger readers don't like to read just huge blocks of text, and as you can imagine, 30,000 words is like it's like reading a novel. So I've had to go through and put in infographics, put in photos, break down the text into bullet points to make it more appealing to younger audiences and more readable for anybody, really, because like pages and pages of text is just ridiculous to read. Shout out to Nino and Mariag, the boar, for tuning in tonight. Just going to the next page. So these are the takeouts we got from listening to the PATAFA interview, which was moderated by Kiko Thompson, in which she interviewed EJ Obiena, Philip Wico, and Terry Capistrano, the PATAFA leaders. Now, one interesting thing that was revealed from the podcast was that, as announced before to the media, was that the National Open will be held in September, most likely in New Clark City. It was announced on the podcast that the permit allowing the use of the venue only allows up to 100 entries, which it wasn't clear if that actually included officials, as technical officials as well, which would bring down, as you need a lot of technical officials for a meet, would severely bring down the number of athletes who can actually enter the competition itself. It was also announced that there will be, which I'd already been informed of before, but it was actually reiterated that there will be qualifying standards for the competition to reduce the number of entries. So the qualifying standards would ensure that only athletes that really have a chance at qualifying for the SEA Games will be invited to join the National Open. So it's not really a National Open, it's really more of a national invitational meet. So basically you need to be of a certain standard to be invited by the Federation to participate at these final tryouts for the Southeast Asian Games. And with these final tryouts held in September and the Southeast Asian Games in November, it's more than likely that it would almost be on the cusp of the Taskforce's deadline, so it would more than likely be the final tryout for the Southeast Asian Games for the Philippine team. So what was also revealed to me by some members of the task force was that the medalists will automatically be entered from 2019, will automatically be entered into the SEA Games due to the lack of competitions in 2020 because of the COVID pandemic. And whoever else wants to join the delegation to the SEA Games must hit the bronze medal standard from 2019. It was also announced, though, that it might be possible that the Olympic Committee might allow non-bronze medal qualified athletes, or in some cases like non-bronze medalist qualified teams, to go to the SEA Games at their own expense. However, it was also announced that these pay at your own expense athletes that would like to be included in the SEA Games, they would still need to be screened and monitored by the task force to see if they are actually competitive at the SEA Games. So it's not going to be a case of like basically people with a lot of money can just go to the SEA Games and finish dead last in their events. There would be safety measures in place to prevent that from happening. So, meaning to say that open the window. Not the whole screen actually, not part of it. There we go. So yeah, back to the SEA Games selection for 2021. Yeah, as I was saying, there was probably going to be some safety measures in place to ensure that that athletes who more than likely finished it last are not going to just use money to get into the games. The other thing to take into account the other thing that was said, that if these athletes who pay for themselves to go, and if they get a medal, then they'll be reimbursed by PSC. However, the other thing to know is this isn't going to be a cheap trip, because obviously if you go to Vietnam, you're going to have to undergo a 14-day quarantine, so you're going to have to pay 14 days in a hotel. Then you're going to have to pay for the hotel during the trip. Then you're going to have to pay for food during that time, plus whatever else. So, you know, you're going to end up probably paying for, you know, at least 3 weeks or more of accommodation and food expenses to go there. So it will probably only be a select few that can actually afford that sort of expense, considering how COVID-stricken the Philippines is right now. Moving on. So these are some updates we're going to be discussing tonight. We're going to be talking about the SEA Games ranking lists, which I've just released, the Malaysian athletic results, pole vault men's qualifying, how Duplantis, 2 junior athletes from Africa who are coming up, and another more established African athlete making a move, and some stuff about the UAAP. So that's what's on the cards to be discussed tonight, and a shout out to our audience of Giant Martin Esteban, Palaro record holder of the triple jump, Carl Guatno, Melissa Nabor, AR de thrower, or now known as Arthur de thrower, Rosie Villarito, the I think 2009 SEA Games champion in the women's javelin, and Nina Mariag, the 2011 SEA Games bronze medalist in the long jump. Now moving on to discuss what we're going to talk about tonight. So yeah, we did discuss Kieran Tuntivate, how he came out and ran 27:17 and smashed his, you know, Southeast Asian record of 28:45, qualifying for the Olympics with 27:28. The second Southeast Asian athlete in athletics to qualify. Oh no, sorry, not the second. Oh, maybe the third, because the Indonesian guy Zori has already qualified. So the first Thai athlete to qualify for the Olympics. And yeah, he needs to come out and run below 13:13.5 to qualify for the Olympics in the 5K as well, but he's threatening to run 13:10. And looking at how he ran his 10K, I think he's got a very good chance of running that or faster, because his PB officially is only 13:57, but he went and he ran the 10K. He ran the first 5,000 meters of it in 13 minutes 45, which is 12 seconds faster than his PB. And then he went on to run another 13 seconds faster than that for the second half of the 5K in 13:32. So, you know, if he can run 13:32 after running a 13:45 5K, I think very doable for him to run 13:10 or faster. And, you know, like negative splits, the term negative split is when an athlete runs the second half of a distance, usually 400 meters up in track events, faster than what they ran the first half of the distance. So a negative split is something special, because it's not done very often in athletics, because I mean, you think about it, if you run, obviously your body's fatigued in the second part of the race, so it's, you know, to be able to run even faster in the second half means that, you know, you honestly had heaps of reserve for that second part. And, you know, like a negative split's not very common. And an example of a famous negative split is when Butch Reynolds set the world record in the 400 meter dash in 1988. And I believe that may be the only time a 400 world record has been held with a negative split. So Butch Reynolds ran the first 200 of his world record, 421.9, and he came home in 21.3. So he came home 0.6 faster in the second part of the 400, which, you know, if anybody who's ran a 400 knows how excruciating that second 200 is, and like you're in a world of pain, but to be able to cruise through and be able to um, run way faster on in the second half of the four is just phenomenal. Anyhow, and shout out to Alan Vega, one of our coaches from the Bicol region, who's been supporting our virtual meets. Yeah, so looking at Kieran's times, honestly, he could take he's run 3:43 as well in the 1500, and that's quicker than anybody in the SEA Games personal best by about 4 seconds. He's the quickest athlete in terms of PBs of personal bests in the SEA Games is Dongbantai of Vietnam, and he's won 3 or 4 1500 meter titles in the SEA Games over the years, and his PB, he's the next quickest at 3:47. So Kieran honestly will, if he decides to run the 1500 as well, it'll be a very interesting battle against Dongbantai in his home ground in Vietnam. Shout out to Mara Kevin Revilla as well, a long distance runner from Cebu. And I'll move on to the next screen now that we've discussed our time here as an Eagle friend here. So next is the Malaysian athletic news updates. So as I mentioned before, Russell Tabe opened the season with the fastest 200 metres in Southeast Asia so far with a time of 21:24 at a competition in Nathan, Queensland, Australia. He finished second in that race. He's the Malaysian record holder with a personal best of 20.77, and also the SEA Games bronze medalist in the 200 behind the two tyres. Also in the news, Hakim Ismail is aiming for the Olympics. He's done 16:77. He's going over to some competitions in Europe, and he needs to jump 17:14 to qualify for the Olympics. And he's in the 2017 SEA Games he jumped at 16:77. And he's won 3 SEA Games titles in the triple jump, 2015, 17, and 19. If he can win another SEA Games title in the long jump, in the triple jump, only one athlete has ever done that before, and that was another Malaysian by the name of Zaki Sagiri, who won 4 triple jump titles from 1987 to 1993 for Malaysia at the Southeast Asian Games. And so like he would tie the record of the great Sadiri if he could, if he comes out and wins his next SEA Games. Moving on to the next screen. So just a recap about Ernest Obiena's 5.86 meter PB in the pole vault, which was a new Philippine national record, indoor Southeast Asian record PB. So we're going to discuss where that ranks EJ and how everyone else is doing in the pole vault right now. With 4 months leading up to the Olympics, there's still quite a bit of time, but we'll discuss the landscape of the pole vault momentarily. All right, so in the recent weeks, Duplantis and updates on world pole vaulting. So Mondo Duplantis has jumped 6 meters 10 in Belgrade, Serbia for a world lead. He also attempted 6:19 meters, the world record, but failed. There are 3 pole vaulters in 2021 who have jumped over 6 meters. So Duplantis, pictured here from Sweden, has jumped over 6 meters 10, the world record holder with 6.18 meters. Renard Levellini, the former world record holder, at 35 years of age, has jumped 6.06 meters, probably the best he's jumped in the last 4 or 5 years. And interestingly, another youngster who's one day younger than Duplantis at just 21 years of age is the American Casey Lightfoot, who just in a US college meet joined the 6 meter club recently by jumping 6 meters. So Casey Lightfoot is an interesting athlete to watch because he's improved 18 centimeters in a year from 582 to 6 meters. So he's another athlete, who has some pretty rapid improvements right now, who's also on the horizon. And shout out to Edward Obiena. So yeah, I'm going to now show you the world rankings for the pole vault. So this is for 2021. So as I mentioned, Duplantis, Lavalleni, and Lightfoot are all over 6 meters at the moment. Lightfoot actually had his performance a few weeks ago at a NCAA college meet in Lubbock. There's also Menno Villoen from the Netherlands. He's jumped 596. Christopher Nilsson from the US at 593. And then tied in 6th place in the rankings at the moment is Torben Blech of Germany. Sam Kendricks, the reigning world champion in the pole vault. And of course, very own from the Philippines, Ernest John Obiena, the Asian Games and was it the Asian Track and Field champion and World University Games champion. Yeah, so this is the landscape at the moment. 4 months out before the Olympics. Yep. So yeah, with 4 months to go. Now, not all the qualifying slots in the Olympics have been filled at the moment. Last I saw, there was no change. I think it's still 21 of 32 slots filled, so there's still 11 bonus slots for jumpers under 5 meters 80. I'll be covering other events when I have time. I haven't had a chance to update them. It's been busy. Shout out to Leah Serralta as well. Okay, so now some news on World Athletics for juniors, upcoming juniors. So Lythe Pillay from South Africa just clocked 45.74 at the age of 17 for the 400 meters. Wasn't ranked in the top 10 last year of the juniors, but it's now at the moment ranked number 1. However, at the World Juniors, which will be held later in the year at Kenya, his main opposition will come from the American Jerome Robinson, who ran 44.91, who's a year older. But he ran that back in, I think it was September of last year, in 2020. Now, moving on to our next screen, another impressive junior was Letsile Tebogo of Botswana, only 18, who just turned 18 years of age and has now taken the World Junior lead and, in fact, the fastest time in the seniors as well with 10.14 into the second month of the year. This was a new Botswana record and it broke the previous record of Isaac Makwala, which was 10.20. Tebogo has now taken the top spot as the favourite for the World Juniors in Kenya later in the year. Before I actually, in our last track talk, I actually talked about Godson Bloom, who was only, who had not yet turned 16. He was 15 and he ran 10.27 from Nigeria. Tebogo is now taking the lead from him. So there's a lot of very quick young guys in Africa at the moment, it seems, heading into these World Junior Championships. They seem to be quicker than their American counterparts right now. Remember, at the last World Juniors in 2018, it was a surprise over the Americans when Lolo Zori from Indonesia came out and reduced the two American runners to second and third in a very shocking final, which he won from lane 8. So yeah, there's a lot of talented youngsters now coming out of the big continent of Africa. Okay, and now Wayde van Niekirk. So yeah, Wayde van Niekirk has decided to move coach from his current coach over to the US to train with, I think it's Lance Broman, and join the group of Noah Lyles in the US. And then next one is, it's the UAAP canned. All right, so I read a very interesting article of by the Tiebreaker Times. It was very interesting, very informative, and I'll just go over some of the main points with you. So yeah, the UAP for 2021 being cancelled. Season 83 canned. I'll read just briefly. Although the cancellation of season 83 yielded a dismal response from the athletic community, multiple factors such as health concerns, financial stress, and logistical issues ultimately led the league's officials to their final decision. At the beginning of 2020, most second semester sports for season 82 faced a delayed start due to concerns over early COVID-19 outbreaks. Following this, President Rodrigo Duterte suspended classes on March 9 due to the country's increasing number of COVID cases. According to a Rappler Sports report, the UAAP planned to implement other tournament formats to complete season 82 if the national government declared class resumption. However, the fate of season 82 reached its crescendo on April 7 when the UAAP Board of Trustees announced the cancellation of season 82 due to the extension of enhanced community quarantine. Now it looks like season 83 has been cancelled. And very good article by the Tiebreaker Times. Do check it out. They have, sorry, not by the Tiebreaker Times, by the Guide-On. My apologies. The Guide-On has a very good article on cancellation of the UAP. Here we go. With this development, the UAP laid out 3 scenarios for the resumption of season 83. The first option was to hold all sports together in one central venue in a similar way to the Palaroa or the SEA Games. However, due to the logistical issues of housing thousands of people in a single venue, this was not a feasible choice. The second option was to hold second semester sports only since their seasons were cut short in season 82, but the UAAP Board of Trustees rejected this proposal as well. The last option was to stage only basketball and men's basketball, women's volleyball. Despite this being the most drastic option, it was heavily considered to minimize the number of athletes and necessary staff in the bubble. Moreover, the 2 sports were seen as the most profitable events that could help the league recuperate the steep cost of holding sporting events. In the end, none of the options were approved by the UAP's Board of Trustees, and season 83 was ultimately cancelled. According to University Athletics Office Director Fernandez, health concerns, financial stress, and logistical issues were the 3 primary reasons that brought the season to a halt. As seen in the Philippine Basketball Association's bubble, stringent protocols failed to prevent some athletes and personnel from contracting the virus. Given the risk of the infection and uncertainty surrounding COVID-19's long-term effect, the league deemed the resumption of season 83 too risky for a health standpoint. Apart from the health concerns, pushing through with the UAP season 83 would entail huge financial implications. According to Fernandez's calculations, it would cost around 5 million pesos for a team of 25 athletes and staff to train per month inside the Loyola School's campus. As fans, students, and at the end of the day, here we go, this is the last part, with Season 83 is fatefully decided. All eyes are now on UAAP Season 84. Fernandez is currently pushing for the league to secure vaccines at some UAAP member schools and expressed their willingness to participate if everyone is vaccinated. Furthermore, having a vaccine would significantly decrease the health and safety risks for UAAP stakeholders. In consideration to the league prioritising each stakeholder's safety, the viability of UAAP Season 84 heavily depends on the league's ability to secure vaccines for around 3,000 athletes and hundreds of staff and personnel. At the same time, the league must also secure approval from CHED and the IATF EID to resume collegiate sporting action. Before UAAP schools can even begin planning to restart training, they must first secure guidelines from CHED as well as IATF's EID's approval of said protocols. At the end of the day, the decision to cancel Season 83 was a combination of numerous factors ranging from health and safety, finances, and logistics. Although the season's cancellation was disheartening for many, it is clear that the UAAP's Board of Trustees ultimately took the most feasible path that favoured the well-being of the league stakeholders. As fans, students, and athletes alike await for new information regarding the future of the UAAP, a glimmer of hope remains as the UAAP Board of Trustees continues to work on necessary contingency plans for the season ahead. And yeah, so that's 30-something minutes of talking there. Now, the last part of this presentation is regarding the next virtual event organised by Pinoyathletics, the Sprintopia event. The event schedule will be March the 13th to the 14th. Events will be 100, 200 and 400 to be ran on ovals that are currently open. Email your name, event choices, year of birth, best time and venue, oval which you'll be using for this virtual event to pinoyathletics@gmail.com. There is no entry fees. We have, however, announced we are moving our deadline forward. We're not moving, like, it's unusual that, you know, an organizer would move the deadline forward. Usually the deadline is moved back to give people more time to enter. But due to the overwhelming number of entries to this event, in order to help manage it better, we're changing the deadline to March 5, as it will require a lot more, a lot more logistics and planning to actually make sure that the event runs smoothly. So we're now moved our deadline to March the 5th. It's no longer March the 10th as previously announced. All entries must be in by March the 5th. And as stated, absolutely no late entries will be accommodated at all. So all entries have to be in by March the 5th. As of now, around 120, 130 entries, maybe more, as there are other entries that are coming in through Facebook, but we will really only accept entries that come in through email through pinoyathletics@gmail.com, as it's very easy with lots of windows opening in Facebook to overlook the entries. If you want to make sure that your entry is secure and comes in, please email pinoyathletics@gmail.com. All right, that's all. I'm going to be taking some questions now, and then I'm going to be rounding off and going and watching some TV. So that's all from me here in Sydney, Australia, on the latest in Philippine athletics and world athletic news. If you have any questions, please post them. I'll do my utmost to answer them. If not, then that's fine. It's just good to be back on the podcast again. And hopefully we'll be having some exciting guests lined up for you shortly. I'm just going to actually check on some of those, some of the guest statuses. But anyway, again, thank you to all our viewers. If you missed the show, via the live stream. If you missed us live, you can view this on the Pinoyathletics page, as a lot of people do. I understand that the viewership might be a bit lower tonight because there's a NBA game with Spurs on, which will for sure have most Filipinos glued to the screen, knowing how attached they are to basketball. It's more likely that basketball will get first dibs over athletics tonight. Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in, and good night.